Hey, everybody, and welcome to So Confused. I am just so excited again to have Jaren Jones with me this morning. Woo! How you feeling today?
Feeling great, feeling great. It's always good to be back and share space with people that I enjoy. So, shout out to you for taking the courageous leap in building the podcast and putting it out there. This is something that I've always known, the creative side that's been pulling at you. So, congrats to you as well. Happy to be a
Yeah.
guest.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
thank you so much. It is. It's probably the bravest that I've been. I tell you, I record so much content and then it's in the can. And then I'm like,
Great.
should I release it? I don't know. And then I do the Capricorn thing and I overthink it. But this will definitely get released because as I've stated, I think this topic is so huge right now and it needs to be discussed a little bit more. And especially to me within the black community because I think somehow we can kind of get lost. So, as I stated earlier in my introduction, today, Jaren and I are going to have a deep conversation about the difference between being a coach and influencing. So Jaren, just kind of introduce yourself first of all. Let's go back. Introduce yourself. I know that you are a coach, but give us a little more. Give us some meat.
Yeah, yeah. I'm Dr. Jared Jones. I have a PhD in leadership development with a focus on looking at self trust, self efficacy, and personal hardiness. So, really, the foundation of confidence. And using narrative as a tool to kind of help us explore that. Did that work for a long time after making several pivots in life, recognizing that, there are moments where old stories no longer fit and a new story needed to begin. And so along that journey, I ended up doing work within aerospace and defense, teaching at the University of Florida, and working within tech, which is where I met Britt. And
Yeah,
so what I love about the relationship is that immediately from meeting, there were so many things that were aligned in terms of the arts, the creative side, and things like that. And so the work that I was doing. I wasn't doing as much within tech
mm.
because I was kind of
Hmm.
pouring everything into that role, but the work that I do now full time is as a coach, narrative and leadership development coach, and I help people to basically solve expensive indecision. I help
Mm.
capable people who may stall for months at the edge of a decision that they already know the answer to, but I help them see the why and see how that story may have outgrown who they are, and is eroding at their self trust. And so, from those one-on-one sessions, from training and development, from resources that I share, I help them get moving again.
Yeah.
That's kind of a little backdrop about me. And
Let's continue to talk a little bit about you, Jaren. Why did you become a coach? What drew you to that field?
yeah, so the work probably predates, I'd say, for as long as I can remember, I've always wanted to help people. A lot of like help people see the beauty in themselves. And so when I started working as a soil scientist, I recognized that I was the furthest away from people that you could possibly be in that field, and wanted to exercise self trust and go into doing what I knew I was called to do, which is to help. And so that's what kind of pushed me to pursue the PhD to kind of also broaden my portfolio of what I'm able to do and what I'm able to offer. And so
Mhm.
while I was there, I created I co-founded a nonprofit called Self Narrate based off of my doctoral research on using narrative and storytelling. And so from that, I started working with student organizations and then community organizations, and creating trainings and opportunities for people to start building and developing their own stories and holding and owning the pen. And so from those workshops, it was coaching. I just didn't identify it. It was kind of woven into it. It was more from a training perspective.
Yeah.
And so towards the end, as I started to do that work and continue to move on, I knew there was more that I wanted to provide as an offering. And then that's when I discovered coaching.
Mm.
And so from that space, it allowed me to add an additional offering where it's not just the unpacking and development of one story, but now I can help the client or the participant kind of mirror and see what's kind of keeping them or from achieving their personal goals, whether it's career, whether it's personal, whether it's creative, or like if it's an art or anything like that. Whatever those decisions are, I help them unpack. And so I ask very important questions that keeps them at the center to raise their own self awareness and find their own solutions for the problem. So yeah, and it just feels like the goal in getting the PhD was to go and learn the leadership theory that I could go back home and tell our people to be like, hey, we just see this as something that is just normal to us, but it actually has a theory behind it. It actually has a name behind it. And this is how we can improve upon it where it can better us and our community and stuff like that. So the coaching is just another additional tool. And something I just feel like, when I'm in that zone, I'm in a session with a client and I'm able to kind of read and identify themes and kind of confirm with them and see them have those aha moments for themselves and to find that self trust for them. I know that that's where I'm supposed to be and that's the work I'm supposed to do. So, yeah, I got a taste of it from the training, and then after like getting trained as an official coach, a certified coach, that's when I learned the art and the morals and ethics and all the things that go into making sure that I do it the right way, where it always keeps the client at the center and never about the coach
Right.
themselves.
So,
Hmm.
you had all that coaching time. You said something earlier, said you wanted to take it back home.
Hmm.
So, I wanna dig in there a little bit.
Sure.
Where would home be for you? Like, some people think, like, I've had to have this perfect background to do this, or my world has had to look a certain kind of way. If you don't mind sharing, what
Yeah.
does home look like when you say I was gonna take it back home?
Yeah. Well, I think when I think about back home, I think about small town North Carolina. I grew up in Winterville and Greenville, Eastern North Carolina, and so one of the things that I felt that I was blessed with was I had a lot of exposure because of my mom. She was also in the theater as well, and so we would travel. Were in plays with Auntie Maya Angelou. Like I got to see a lot of things that most people from a small town don't get a chance to see. So I got to see what was possible. So when it came to like thinking about bringing it back home, it was to the family, the friends, the people that I felt may not have had access to see what else was out there. To bring it back to them, so they could also see that everyone has the same ability. They
Yes.
just have to make the decision. And sometimes seeing or hearing that they are a part of what they envision and that it's actually possible is enough for them to take the next step. So
Yeah.
it's always been a space where if I did coaching and training and development, which is I think why the nonprofit route worked for me at first, it was a space where I wanted to make sure there was equity and access. And so also
Mhm.
as I continue to build out the coaching lens, I'm trying to find ways where I keep my high ticket offerings,
Mhm.
given the decades of research and work and hours and
Yeah.
so that one-on-one time like that container is still there, but I also want to be able to provide access to those who can't necessarily afford those high ticket but still deserve access. So that might look different. Maybe it's group coaching, maybe it's tapping into the influencer market of giving away free tidbits on like Instagram and social media, and then giving offerings where people are able to figure out when they're willing and able to make that investment, they can also take that high ticket offering as well. So it's a space where I'm always looking to figure out how can I be of service, how can I show up for my communities, but also I think very important is to make sure that you recognize and understand what your value is.
Right,
Um,
right,
and
right.
so yeah, back home are the people that have always been in the community with me, and also the people that I've met along the way. And so I very rarely feel like I have friends. I just feel like the family keeps
Just
growing.
one big family, right? I can
Yeah,
imagine. If I
yeah,
had to do, I think, 100 hours of coaching, my family would know me well. If I had to
for
find people, it would be
sure,
like, "Everybody, I'm
for
calling you
sure.
up, I'm calling you up, let's practice, let's practice."
Mhm.
And you're like,
Yeah,
"No, don't answer the phone, it's Brittany, don't answer the phone." So,
yeah,
that is a very intensive training program that
yeah,
you had to go through. So now
yeah.
let's get back to what you said, because we really wanna talk about influencers, right?
Mhm.
Because and the difference between coaching and influencing. So, can you be both? Let's go here. A coach and an influencer. Are are all these roles naturally separated? Can you be both? Let's start
Yeah.
there. In your opinion.
Um, yeah, so I think from my opinion, but for the most
Mm,
part, there's no real like definition of this is what an influencer does and what they don't do. And so oftentimes an influencer or someone on social media, you'll see the name, you'll see coach thrown around, you'll see influencer thrown around, you'll see um and see mental, like you'll see several different titles because it's how you use that tool, you know? And
Right.
so for me, I think about
But are
influencers.
they the same? I mean, we're really
So I would
I mean,
say,
let's just get down to the nitty-gritty.
yeah, yeah,
It's
yeah.
are they
I
the
would
same?
I would say it depends on what they're doing. So like for me as a coach, if I'm using social media to reach an audience, I have to put on an influencer hat in terms of what am
Okay.
I influencing? So it's like, how am I reaching out? You know, how am I sharing um, what I've learned or the tools that I use? And so for
Okay.
me, I'm influencing people to believe in themselves more, you know,
Gotcha.
and
Gotcha.
but at the same time, the way in which I do it from a coaching lens and a certification lens is completely different, you know. So you can be a coach that is also an influencer to bring in clients,
Right.
but you
Okay.
can be an influencer and you can say to be a coach, and it doesn't necessarily mean that you're certified through a certain agency. It doesn't mean that you necessarily need certifications, more so what the people are willing to buy into. But you have to be careful with that. So I tell people to make sure that they're kind of, because you're in a space where anyone can just throw out a title and kind of make it look good,
Yeah.
if you're going to be influenced, it's just like when they were leaders, you kind of want to look and look at the stock. You want to make sure that you trust that person, you trust that they've done the work and not just made it look like they've done the work.
Mhm.
But you also want to do your research. Like if someone is a coach, see what kind of coach they are, because you may find that they might be more of an advisor or a consultant. And so a
Mhm.
coach, as the way as per defined by the International Coaching Federation, is
Mhm.
someone who works with a client to keep that client at the center to raise that client's own self-awareness. And
Okay, say
so
that
I'm
again. Say that
yes.
again.
So in layman's terms, as a coach, in the way that I've been trained, I don't give any answers.
Mhm. I was gonna ask you that. I was gonna ask you what a coaching session looks like so we would know what that kinda looks like, the difference from an influencer. So break
Mhm.
that down. I like that.
The only time I'm giving answers is in the discovery call or the clarity call. And that's when you first book a session to figure out if this relationship makes sense. And so in that clarity call or discovery call, I'm explaining who I am, my research focus, the way in which I've developed a framework to deliver my coaching practice, what coaching is, what it's not, what it is as it relates to therapy, how it's not therapy, it's not consulting. And so coaching keeps the client at the center. So my goal as a coach is to be as present as possible. My specific training is in ontological coaching, which means that I'm looking at the study or the understanding of beingness. So by when I say being, I mean like how is the person showing up, as it includes their language, their body language, the words they use, the when you see their breath. Sometimes you'll see them take a deep breath, sometimes they'll sigh, sometimes you'll see different pitch. My goal is to pick up on those nuances to see what happened there. Like when you share this, I noticed this. Would you like to go deeper? You know, and so it's a space where the person is starting to see almost a sense a mirror of what they're projecting, and they're
Mhm.
learning what they're either consciously or unconsciously believing in themselves, you know? And so
Mhm.
the discovery call for me is helping them to explain what coaching is. And I let them know that this is the most talking I will ever do because most of it is me actively and presently listening and asking the important questions for the client to discover their own solutions. So a
Right.
coaching session starts with me and the client establishing an agreement of what they want to focus on that day. Oftentimes, after that clarity call or discovery call, if they come on as a client, we create an action plan. We create a change plan based off of what they have defined that they want to work on, built in with affirmations, with actions, with goals, with timelines, accountability measures, and things like that. And so we can use that as a North Star for each coaching session. But I begin with, is there anything that is that's coming to you today that we need to work through? And you have dedicated time to navigate how to find your own solution in this session. And so oftentimes it's still within that coaching plan, but several times there are things that might have happened that day that they're like, this is really bothering me and I want to sit with this. And so my goal is to make them, okay, so with what you want to sit with, what does success look like by the end of this session? And so once we've confirmed what that agreement is, then I go deep with them in questioning for them to figure out what's going on. You think about the iceberg, what's above the water, but most importantly, we explore what's below the water. And
Right.
then by the end of the session, they start to recognize that they've solutioned their own problems. They've looked at what resources they may need. They've looked at what potential barriers could get in the way. And also, they've given themselves a measurable timeline to achieve what it is they want to achieve. And they may have done it in that session. But
A heavy
again,
load on accountability, right? There's some
absolutely.
accountability with it. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So what
Yeah.
I'm hearing, Jaren, is you really get into the person, you really explain the process to that individual,
Hmm.
and then you really begin to listen to them. So now I'm going to go on the other side because to the influencer, because I love what you said is as a coach you influence for your program. So that's how
Hmm.
you use the two. But someone who's really not offering a program, they're just online influencing. That's a big difference, right? Because I've seen some people like lose their hearts, like just get torn apart by calling in to some influencer. And then
Hmm.
in 2 seconds, they know them. They're deciding who they are. They, you know, what do you think about that? What do you what when you see that, how does that make you feel? Because I know I'm not a coach and I see that and I want to reach out and help us. That's one. And then why do you think you can answer either one because my mind is going. Why do you think we are drawn as black people so much? And I'm not saying any other race does not. I'm just saying from my perspective as a black woman, I notice a lot of us looking for that person to just offer us this instantaneous answer. And is that it? It's the instantaneous answer. Did I just answer my own question or what do
No,
you think?
I think everyone's reasoning for uh, choosing to participate in whatever the influencer is given is their own unique journey. And so, from the first question, I would take a step back to say, for me, um, when I see influencers who are actually consulting or giving advice, um, the way that I my makeup is, I'm looking at the person's whole heart. So for
Mm,
me, from the beginning, if you're an influencer and you're not trying to protect people and
mm.
protect their well-being, I have a problem with what your intentions may or may not be.
Yeah.
Because there's a weight that you carry as, like I said, I don't like to use influencer as a leader. You've been viewed as a leader to that person, which is why they're seeking your guidance or your judgment or your expertise. So a lot of influencer work that I've seen done is more based along the lines of this is what's worked for me, and I'm going to tell you why
Yes.
it should work for you.
Yes.
And a lot of times they're seeking that's like unofficial mentorship. If you really look at it, it's not even like necessarily advisement. It's mentorship. People are looking for someone who can speak to their pain points, and then to your second question, can give them a solution quick. And so oftentimes they know their own answer, but
Mhm.
sometimes trusting themselves and the answer that they know they need to take or they need to accomplish is harder than having someone else tell you what you need to do. And
Mm.
so from what I've seen from my experiences is it also gives you a little bit of freedom to fail. If someone else gives me something, but it's not something that I feel like my intuition or my gut or, whatever you want to call that connection to the source has told me I'm to do, then it's okay because I just got bad advice. you
Yes.
know,
Yes.
but
And you didn't pay anything. You
didn't
went
pay anything.
online,
Yep,
so there was
yep.
no skin in the game. So
Mm-mm,
there's no level of what you offer as a coach or other coaches may offer that accountability piece there,
mm-hmm,
right? Because
mm-hmm.
I'm dipping in, I'm dipping out.
Yeah, yeah, and for them, the influencership, the way they monetize is generating a very large audience.
When we look at
Absolutely.
that Jan, what would you say is a red flag for an individual, both as an influencing, if you have an encounter with an influencer, and as a coach? What's a red flag for individuals as they begin to seek this out?
Yeah, I think from an influencer perspective, anyone who use blanket solutions or generalizes people's experiences. So, like, people who say to me, like the language I stand on, oh, well, men do this or women do this or black folks, you
Questions
like,
about that.
don't put us in
Yes.
a, yeah, don't put us in this box because everyone's journey is so unique and important. There may be similarities, but we can't use all. We can't use, one person's lived experience or 10 people's lived experiences from that certain demographic to say that that's the proof that everyone experiences it the same way.
Yeah.
And so I think that that's a shortcut that gets people on board to get bought in. Um, and then I think from a coaching perspective, I think a red flag is, I would say, presenting as a coach without properly providing what type of coach you are,
Okay.
what kind of ethical standards because you don't have to be certified to be a coach. But I do think to be a good coach, you have to have that person's best interest at heart and have accountability methods to make sure, um, even as you feel that you're good at what you do, you have mentorship, you have supervision, or you've done something that allows you to also make sure you're recalibrating as a coach to ensure your bias, both conscious and unconscious, isn't feeding into the way you facilitate the questions and the environment for your client.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, yeah, yeah, and I think for an advisor, just like you would do, like, I put it this way, like, if it's a consultant or an advisor or a coach, think of them just like an accountant. If you were giving this person your access code to your bank account, what would you need to do to feel comfortable believing that your money would be there tomorrow?
Sure. Sure.
You
Sure.
know?
Yeah. 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 Feeling that safe place, you know?
Mhm,
Sometimes, you're listening to influencers on social media and you hear someone talking and you feel that they're revealing some trauma,
mhm, absolutely.
in that space. But
Yeah,
when you're with a coach and they start revealing trauma, when you and I were first talking, you talked about maybe the type of coach you are,
mhm,
you're not equipped for that.
right,
So
yeah,
how do you deal with that instead of just kinda like
mhm.
next on the line,
Yeah,
or
yeah.
keep going?
Oh, no.
How do
Well,
you how do
yeah.
when real trauma presents itself, how do you deal with that?
Ethically, I have a responsibility to make sure that that potential client is okay and they're seeking and have the mental health resources that they need. And so within the clarity call or coaching session or whatever that engagement is, whether you're seeing if coaching works for you or if while in coaching sessions you start to recognize that there are signs that there's some sort of trauma or something that requires a little bit more professional mental health resources, it's my have to give you those resources. And so, or point you in terms of referring you to where you can find those resources. So take, for instance, like a lot of the work around the clarity calls and discovery calls are to make sure that they're at a space where they can receive coaching. So
Mhm,
key differentiator from coaching and therapy um, is that within coaching, we're looking at goal creation. We're looking at where they are now and where they want to go in the future.
mhm,
But if you recognize that the potential client is still referring to a past trauma or something in the
mm,
past or something that's present today that keeps reoccurring, that keeps them from being able to focus on the here and now and the tomorrow, then
mhm,
that's where you may need someone who is able to clinically diagnose, someone who's
mhm.
done thousands of hours with supervision and reviewing people who might struggle with addiction or depression. And all those things are very important to understand that you have resources for and should seek those resources.
Yeah,
And so where coaching and therapy work well is, and I work with a practice, a black owned practice, Impacts. Shout out to my people over there.
yeah, shout
What
out.
what works best is that when they have a client who has made a lot of progress and wants to now really focus on the future self, where I work with the client and provide coaching sessions in between the therapy sessions. And so
Mhm,
what they find is that I'm able to help them through questioning to unpack where it is they want to go. They might recognize that, oh, I just discovered I'm still navigating through something that's keeping me from making that next in line step.
yeah,
I'm now going to write that down and take that into my next therapy session so I can explore that and get it out of the way. So I can work through that trauma and heal through that so that I can continue to work on being the best version of myself. So
Right.
that's
So
the
they don't
ideal
stop
situation.
coaching for therapy. They do them simultaneously, right?
Yeah, you can. So you can either have a coach, you can either just have a therapist, but you can't have both. And I would say that everyone, you want to talk about like healing, you want to talk about goal alignment and just like finding ways to show up as the best version of yourself. I think everyone should have both a therapist and a coach.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And oftentimes we probably have that in unofficial ways and probably not the best ways. Like a
Yeah.
lot of my brothers, we say, hey, we get therapy in a barbershop chair. Now, we might get some wisdom. I
Yeah.
agree.
Yeah.
But
You'll get some
you,
influencing,
you get
right?
some for sure, for sure. And usually the loudest person in the barbershop has the biggest opinion and the most influence.
Yeah.
Not necessarily one who's actually ready or able to understand what's going on for the specific case that you're going through.
Yeah.
But there is that feeling of therapy through community. So again, you have to recognize the level in which you are needing that help, and then like for coaches, a lot of times people receive that from mentors. Mentors may provide mentorship but then ask you coaching questions, and so you
Mhm.
might get that from that space. I tell people all the time, like, not necessarily, I understand the value of having a one-on-one human experience, but people should try and like explore an AI coach and see what just those questions they'll spark something in you. Either you'll say, "Hey, like I'm doing pretty well for myself," or I'm also recognizing that even if AI tells me all the things I'm supposed to do and need to do, I'm still not doing those things. The
Mhm.
accountability comes from the human experience because there's even more there that's either conscious or unconscious where that relationship can flourish for that individual. So, um,
I want
yeah.
to go back and repeat something that you said before because I think it's really important that when the same thing is showing up over and over again, when you're having that conversation over and over again. So you're sitting in that barber's chair, and every 2 weeks you sit there, your conversation is about the you and your wife, or
Mhm.
and what's stopping you from getting closer to your kids, or your kids did something and your kids did and every week
Yeah,
it's about that. Then
absolutely.
even as a coach, you realize, wait a minute, this is showing up all the time.
Mhm.
You may need to really address that for us to go on to the next level. I really like that because I think that's what people miss. They kind of do. Back in my storytelling days, I used to tell the story about the dog who was sitting on a nail. And the farmer, guy walks up and he says, "Hey, sir, why is your dog crying?" And the man goes, "Hey, sir, he's sitting on a nail." And he says, "Well, why?" He says, "Well, when it hurts bad enough, he'll get up, right?" So when it hurts bad enough, we get up, but we often don't register with that pain, and we just sit in our own on our own
Yeah,
pen and kind of
yeah,
complain, and moan.
I agree. And
Mhm.
also when we talk about, just lived experiences of those who may have gone through systemic uh challenges that is beyond just them. They may have been conditioned that they're supposed to think that they're supposed to sit on the nail until it's too much to move. You know what I'm saying? So sometimes like surviving is considered like uh something is a source of strength. Not
Yeah,
thriving, but surviving. It's like you sit with the
surviving.
pain. You don't talk about your emotions. You don't say that this thing has bothered me in a certain way, or that there is something better. And so, like I mentioned earlier, a lot of the work I do is helping them to understand that for those who are ready to take action from a coaching lens, that there's a cost to not taking action. It's
Mm.
expensive to not move. It's expensive
Mhm.
to continue sitting on that nail. And
Mhm.
so when people say, well, what's the ROI, or maybe this investment is too high, the question is, if you're the same in 6 months, what have you lost versus what you've gained?
What you could
So
gain.
people that
Yeah.
work with in that clarity and that healing and being able to show up in the better versions of themselves in pursuit of being a continuous better version of themselves, the value of the investment is seen quickly, you know,
Yeah.
but I help them. Inexpensive indecision is real. And
It's
so
real.
if
Yeah.
you're going through that same conversation, it may be a coach, it may be therapy.
Love that because I think we think of coaching as being so rigid. You know what I'm
Mhm.
saying? I go for my
Mhm.
time, here I am. But
Yeah.
it's very fluid, right? It's learning where you can get where you can get fed and where you
Mhm.
can find that change. I think that I that's what I heard you just say, and I think that's a can be a beautiful awakening to others where it's not just
Yeah.
so rigid.
Yeah. I'm telling you,
Yeah.
coaching experiencing coaching, and I have a coach and I have a therapist. It has, changed my life for the better. I started seeking a therapist when I knew I was going to become a father. I have 1.5 boy girl twins, and I, put
They're so
this.
cute. They're so
Thank
cute.
you, thank you. Those they're amazing accountability partners.
Yeah.
I would say, I didn't want to come into fatherhood having unconscious things that could affect their environment to thrive. And so I found a therapist and specifically one a black father with,
Mm,
to help me in that space. And one of the biggest lessons I learned is that my strive for perfection, being the perfect father through, that the sessions, and then he gave me some mentorship, but he asked for permission. He
mhm,
shared, resource of his experience of it's not about being perfect, it's about making mistakes and showing up through those
mhm,
mistakes and showing
mhm.
them that it's, if you strive for perfection, they're always going to feel like they have to be perfect before they make action. And so maybe
Right.
that's something that I felt or feel, whether it was working in tech and feeling like some level of imposter syndrome or just always worried about like layoffs and what was going on. It was like it was never enough.
Never enough?
It
I'm so
was
glad you
never
said that.
yeah,
You're bringing up
yeah,
so many things, Darren. It was
yeah.
just
So I'm telling you. So listen, to find that therapist while I was within tech and then to start coaching while I was within tech made me realize that one, you're always worthy. And so from that space of
when you say
worthiness,
working, explain it working. Do you
oh,
mean
oh,
working on
oh,
yourself?
worthy. You're always worthy.
Worthy. I got you. You're
You
always
know,
worthy.
you're
Got you.
always worthy. You are not your title. You are not your role. You are not that end of year report. You are not that promotion. You're more than that. That's a part of what builds up your identity. But before or after any of that, you're worthy in whatever you choose. And
Mhm,
so from that space, you're supposed to make mistakes. It's from the mistakes that you learn. If you're not
mhm,
making mistakes, then you're probably not innovating and not learning in that space.
mhm,
And so
mhm.
that helped me to give myself some grace and to recognize, like, yes, I'm going to get things wrong. I'm learning, but I want to be able to continue to explain what I learned along the process so that my children have agency. And so, in that healing from self, of this self imposed pressure of trying to be the perfect dad, I was trying to be Uncle Phil. I was trying to be
Yeah.
every black father I saw on TV. I was trying to be
Yeah, yeah,
Cordell
yeah.
West, everybody. That it was like the building of like everything you could think of to make sure that they were in a safe environment. And that was putting more pressure on me and more
Mhm.
stress on me to feel like I had to read all the books and do all the things.
Right,
Uh,
right.
I
And you could
still
have
did it
listened
within
to
reason.
59 million influencers. You could have
Yeah,
Googled,
for
you could have
sure.
AI'd, you could have
Yeah,
done all of those
of
things, but
course.
actually doing the work and having that human contact and building that
Mhm.
actually came from that experience with your own
Absolutely.
coach and your own therapist.
Yeah.
And would
Yeah.
you agree with me just to say this is me being the judge here and attorney here? And wouldn't you agree with me that that's what really made the difference and can possibly make a difference for others?
I agree. I agree. Doing the work, doing the hard work, but
Mm,
also doing it from a space, doing it in a container that is making sure that it has your best interests at heart.
there we go. Yeah.
Because you can unintentionally hurt and harm trying to help. And that's
Yes.
where I ask people to make sure that whoever it is that, whether influencer, coach, or therapist, make sure you, as a potential client or participant, are doing your due diligence to make sure this is the environment in which you want to be vulnerable, that you feel safe, that you feel that they have your best interests at heart, even if it means it's not with them. you
Yeah,
know?
yeah, 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 yeah. Let's
Yeah.
step into your therapist for just 1 second that you
Sure.
work
Yes.
with and you're
Yeah.
seeking out that therapist. Now, I understand that your therapist is a black man,
hmm
correct? Yeah.
Yeah.
So when you were looking for therapists that you could work with, did you find very many black men?
No. No. Like, I think online, he was probably 2 of the many options at this tech firm that I was able to work with, and
Mm-hmm.
that was because he was virtual. He's in Florida. It was
Mm,
so and the therapist that I work for now, he mentions like black men are like I think less than like 5% of the overall like, clinical therapists that are out there. Like they're unicorns. And so we need more black male therapists. We need more people who are speaking to counseling and mental health for specifically lived experiences that they've had because the nuance is different. If the research is based off of someone who's never lived the experience, then it also means the theory probably has some bias that doesn't necessarily hit us the same. And I'm not saying that you can't receive a great experience from someone who's not um, from the same background as you,
Lived experiences count, though.
but it does help. To me, it's helped me. It helped me specifically for what I was looking for.
Yeah. Do
Yeah.
you think less black men go into the field? What is it? I know that less black men, more than before. So I'm not
Hmm.
saying this is
Hmm.
bad. I
It's
think
growing.
more black men are seeking therapy or saying,
Hmm.
hey, I need some additional help. I need the coaching. I need the therapy. I need all of that. But do you think there's still a stigma there?
Yeah,
Are
for
we?
sure. For sure. And I think it's from access, it's from not knowing. But I do want to say that I do believe that we are making great strides very quickly because of social media. And so the same way that, it can be a negative, it can also be a positive. So as a therapist and influencer, he has now influenced people to seek therapeutic resources. You
I
see what I'm
love.
saying? So whatever you're influencing can be good, bad, and different. It depends on their intention.
Right.
Um, I
Right.
think the more people learn about what's there and what's available, and like you said, the stigmas that we no longer have to have and see representation, we
Yeah.
are seeing more black therapists come.
I love that. I love that. I
Mm.
love that because I wanted to talk about accessibility, but
Mhm.
also cost because it can be if it's not a part of your insurance, if you
Right.
don't have insurance, I mean,
Mhm.
it can be costly for someone who's saying like, I can't afford all that. I just
Mhm.
can't.
Yeah.
What would you tell them? What would be a first step of someone who's that you could think of as offering access?
Yeah, I think I would do a Google search because I do think that we make assumptions before we see what resources are out there.
Mm,
Like I think what Taraji P. Henson had a big program giving free therapy sessions to black men, and there are grants that are also available as well. Oftentimes your job, even if it's not a part of your insurance, they have some sort of employee program that provides mental health resources. Especially if it's an emergency. Like you
mhm.
always have access, even if you don't think you can afford it. And so I would say start with the Google search, start with where you work to see what employee programs they have for mental health resources. Because even after, I left the tech company, I still had access to my therapist and it was a part of the insurance. Had I not decided to have kids, I probably would not have, who's to say I would have actually pursued and made that leap to like say, okay, let me go to the therapist. I probably would just stay with coaching. And so I appreciate how life creates opportunities for you to find even more of what you need. So yeah,
Yeah.
start
Yeah.
with a
So
Google search, ask some folks, and
ask some people. Just don't just be limited, right? Don't limit our access and our ability.
mhm,
Jaren, it has been incredible having this
yeah,
conversation with you. Thank you so much for offering and
absolutely,
advising, just sprinkling, that knowledge on us so we can be more aware of the differences, especially when we're listening to influencers and we go, wait a minute, is that what I should absorb?
hmm, yeah,
Is that the
yeah,
best for me? And this is advice.
absolutely, yeah.
This is not about coaching.
I tell everybody, don't wear clothes that don't fit.
Oh, I like that. No, it's
Don't wear.
very uncomfortable, isn't it? Too
That
small
is.
shoes, too
It
small
is.
or too big shoes, right?
Yeah. Uh-huh. So, hey, same goes with that. But also, again, can't thank you enough. Always great to collaborate
Yeah,
with you. I'm so
I
glad to
love it,
see
Jaren.
you.
Hey, how can anyone reach you? I want to support you in any way that I can because I know the work that you do. You are a perfectionist and you definitely, but not a perfectionist in a negative way.
Right. I got you. I got you. Because I
You are
care. Yeah.
yeah, in a
Yeah.
service that
I
you
do the
offer. So
work.
anyway,
Yeah.
how can
Um,
someone find you?
yeah, on social media, my coaching company is I Live Mighty. So you can find that Facebook, Instagram. I probably need to do more work on Twitter, TikTok. But for a professional lens, also on LinkedIn, you can find me at Jaron Jones, PhD. You'll see me. I still have my locks. I still have my suit on, so you'll be able to find me.
Amazing.
And you can also find me as co-host of the Soul Snacks podcast with Dennis McLeod, another certified therapist who is
And
also a
I
great friend.
definitely am going to reach out to Dennis and see if he can
Yeah,
join us because
that'd
I
be great.
definitely think it's important for, I as a woman can't talk to black men about therapy, but to have a black man who can offer that advice, I think
Absolutely.
it's huge. I think we
I
all are
agree.
come to a point where we need to get healed. Everybody trying to
Yeah.
get healed. So
Everybody needs it. Yes.
everybody needs it. All right. So
Everybody
thank you.
deserves it.
No, thank you so much, Jaron, for joining. I hope you've enjoyed this, everyone. And as you know, I always say, take care of one another. Thanks so much. Goodbye. So